To our second segment, we're sticking with athletics right here on the zone. The governing body for track and field in the land of wood and water, the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, has made it clear that any transfer of allegiance switch made by Jamaican athletes to any other nation must be signed off by their office. Speaking at the official launch of this year's National Junior and Senior Championships, President of the organization, Garth Gale, is adamant that things must be handled by the book.
Based on what is written here, that would have been approved by Council on the 13th of July 2022 and became effective the 15th of August 2022. Transfer of allegiance regulations by World Athletics, yes.
Which means you can block it if you want.
Yes. That's to you, sir. Because you're asking me the question.
Now, the transfer of allegiance document cited also makes reference to the possibility of a fee being paid to the country for their athletes, in this case, Turkey, to Jamaica. Now, here's Gale responding in an exchange with the SportsMax Zone's Ricardo Chambers.
That would be a matter to be discussed by the executive of the J3s. We would have been the body elected by the members of the association, of the J3s, so we would have to take it to the executive body. I would not make a decision in that respect.
What, you're not ruling it out?
We would take the matter to our executive if such an offer exists. But no offer has been, no communique has been received to date.
Yeah. Have you yet had any communication with Turkey Athletics, either in writing or otherwise? Telephone conversations, for example? At
the moment, sir, there is not a need for us to make contact with Turkey as
Have
we...
they made contact with you?
No. No.
No conversations?
No.
Not via telephone or otherwise?
Not with no member of my executive of the J3s nor myself. No such communique. We have observed what is in the media and we would have seen a video. But being responsible people, we would want to operate in the right and proper manner.
Sir, sir, you put the president under some pressure today. What else happened?
Listen, from my perspective, I just wanted to be clear of the J3's understanding of the process. And given where we are, and I've read through the transfer of allegiance document, and part of the reason I put those questions to the president is because there are aspects of it I do not completely understand. We have some graphics, and I want to look at 2 points from the transfer of allegiance document. Now, 2.10.6 says disclose what payments, and this is now when the application is made to World Athletics. Turkey, in this case, would have to disclose what payments, other financial consideration or value in kind, if any, the second member has offered to the first member to induce it to agree to the transfer. What I take from that is that it is okay for Turkey to say, okay, J3s, we want these athletes, we are willing to pay you this amount for you to sign off on letting them go. And then 2.10.7 says disclose what payments, other consideration or value in kind or benefits, if any, the second member has offered to the athlete to induce them to agree to the transfer. And so, one, I wanted to know from the J3s, if that offer is made to you, will you be accepting? Or even before the offer is made, will you be seeking to get some compensation? That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect was being very clear as well. Can this transfer go through without the J3s signing off on it when the documents do come from the Turkish Athletics Association? And Garth Gale is saying they have to sign off on it for it to go through. The other aspect of that now, and Henry brought that up in our previous segment, would it make sense for the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association to try and block the athletes? If they want to go, should they allow them to go? And then should the next step be, okay, well, let's benefit from this as well?
Do you have an idea of the sequence of events in terms of how this process will take place? Because they've already sent the documents to World Athletics, right?
Yeah, very interesting because, again, the ruling speaks specifically to the fact that Turkey, and I'm using the specific names here, Turkey must inform the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association. So it is a little bit strange to me that the documents are at World Athletics or the applications are at World Athletics, but still no communication with the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association. That is a little strange. Again, the regulations don't always detail these things, so I am not sure if it is a case where that communication must happen before the documents got to World Athletics, although in my opinion, the sense of the thing is that that should have been the case. No, not just courtesy, just in terms of a process, because if World Athletics are to rule on an application, and as part of the application they say that you must show evidence that you have notified the other member federation, the member federation from which you are taking the athletes, you must have notified them, there must have been some amount of communication, and they have sent the applications to World Athletics without that communication, then that is a little bit strange to me. But I must admit that I am not 100% clear as to the sequence of the process, and that is also part of what I wanted to get clear at that press conference today.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and obviously the entire process cannot conclude without the J3A's ruling on it. There was a newspaper report in The Observer, I think it was Friday, when Garth Gale, the president, suggested that they would not, or they do not intend to block the move by the athletes. But I get the sense that that wasn't so much his narrative today.
I wouldn't say that. I think he just wanted it to be clear that
the process,
yes, and that it can be blocked. Whether or not they take that route, I think, is a completely different discussion. And I don't think he was really willing to delve too deep into that aspect of it. The first vice president, though, Ian Forbes, did suggest that if the athletes wanted to go, that it wouldn't necessarily make sense for them to try and block them. Having said that, the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, through the president and the first vice president, did commit to the fact that they will be lobbying to World Athletics when they get to Congress in September, I guess for more stringent rules to be applied. Because as they put it, this is not just a Jamaica issue, this is not just a Caribbean issue, this is a global issue. There are many countries who are not very happy with what Turkey is doing. And not just countries, but many stakeholders within the track and field landscape. Having said that, I know of other stakeholders who don't mind what is happening because they feel that track and field as an institution, track and field as a global sport needs some amount of shake-up, and that this might be the shake-up that is needed to change the dynamic of the sport and to bring it closer to what we see in many other professional sports where the athletes can benefit even more than they are benefiting now on a wider scale. So there is that side of the story as well. But the J3As did commit to the fact that they will be lobbying, and if they have to lead that process pretty heavily to get some changes to ensure that the regularity with which this happens, countries like Turkey and Kazakhstan and Bahrain and Qatar just buying athletes should not be able to continue in this way.
One of the things Henry Roll mentioned was that, and you put the question to him about this being a done deal or not, because the athletes would have had to not represent Jamaica for 3 years before they become eligible to compete for their new country, Turkey, which is why the timing is as it is now, because they're aiming for Los Angeles Olympics 2028. Henry Roll did suggest that, you know, in that period, the athletes can change their minds. It's not necessarily a done deal. And is it a case then that they, apart from having Turkish citizenship, they would have dual citizenship? So if they want, they could just
Unless Turkey
revert to
revoke
Jamaica?
Well, I suspect if they're not going to compete for Turkey, they might revoke their citizenship.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm talking from the Jamaican standpoint.
Well, dual citizens represent the country all the time. So I suspect,
Yes.
for example, Adel Tracy, who is the Jamaican record holder at 1,500
Right.
meters, or even Aisha Prout-Lair,
They
are
still
dual
hold-
citizens
Yes.
of England and the
and
USA, respectively. So that in and of itself would not be new.
Yes.
Dual citizens, you have dual citizens
Right.
competing on a global scale all the time.
I just wanted to establish that there is a possibility that even if they take the Turkish citizenship, it doesn't completely cut them off from Jamaican
No,
representation if they would choose in the future.
Well, World Athletics, though, there is a part of the regulations which speak to the fact that you will not be allowed to switch back. So if you switch from Jamaica to Turkey, you decide to represent Turkey, World Athletics is saying unless it is under extremely special, extraordinary circumstances, you would not be allowed to switch back and then compete for Jamaica.
So this is even if you had not competed for Turkey? That's the point I'm making. Because I'm suggesting that...
But I'm not 100% sure as to that specific
Yeah, because I'm thinking-
aspect. So maybe that would be part of the extraordinary circumstances. I am not sure.
Okay, because I'm just saying if this happens within the 3 years when they would not yet have represented Turkey, if they would be ineligible to represent Jamaica, who I don't think they would have given up their Jamaican citizenship.
No.
They just added Turkish citizenship, which make them dual citizens.
Well, as it is now, right? Because World Athletics has not ruled
Well, yes, I'm just-
on the matter.
yeah, I'm
so
just-
the athletes could still come to the
Yes.
Jamaican Championships this
Yes,
week
yes.
and still decide that we want to compete at the World
Right.
Championships in September. And once they make the team,
Yes.
they would be eligible for that. So from that standpoint, it is not a done deal. But I was more asking Henry from the standpoint of the athletes and whether they had, made a final decision and this is not something that they are going to turn on.
Final question from me. In terms of the tone of the J3s, right? Because we would have hit them hard in terms of the response from the press release. I know initially at the press conference today, they were hesitant in answering the questions and only wanted the questions in regards to the trials. It's this week, I guess. I'm not sure how many people are paying attention to the trials, but it's this week.
People
It starts
no,
on-
don't do that, Donald, because people are paying attention to the trials, and
okay. All right.
there is a significant amount of quality that will come out of the national championships this weekend.
no, I
Listen,
agree.
I love my track and field. Do not disrespect
Right. Oh,
my
okay.
track and
No,
field.
that
Definitely.
women's
Okay.
100-meter lineup
Yeah,
is
it's gonna be
cracking.
fire.
Yeah,
I still want
Totally
to see
get
what
it.
Brian Level is
Yeah.
going to do. I still am expecting
can I ask a question?
two massive
But
sub-50
you'd
performances
accept though,
in the
Ricardo.
women's 400
You would accept,
meters.
Ricardo, though, that track and field fans are a little distracted.
That's a completely different statement from what Donald just said.
What, hold on. What did, you know what? So, okay, fine. Based on what the J3 is in terms of their attitude today, how did they read the room today? Because firstly, they were hesitant to answer the questions, right? And then after a
that
while...
didn't surprise me. That didn't surprise me. In fact, I said to a friend of mine while I was on my way to the press conference that the J3As would come and say that the questions were limited only to the national championships.
So said, so done.
So said, so done. So that didn't surprise me because clearly from the press release on Friday, in my opinion, it was clear they had a line. The line was we're going by the book and they were going to try and stick to that. But that's why we're given the job that we have. It is our responsibility to probe. It's our responsibility in some cases not to take no for an answer. And this morning was one of those mornings where I think the entire media fraternity present decided we would not take no for an answer. And I suspect had the J3As not given in, then all the media hosts would have walked out of that press conference, in my opinion. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
No, that's what I was asking. Well done.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we out of time? Is that the end of the show?
No, we
Or
have
is
half
that
an
the
hour
end of
remaining.
episode 2?